Hello everyone and welcome to the tutorial video for the FPS Lab. In this video I'm going to be talking about the controller and all of their components. Oh my goodness, and that's a lot to cover in one video, but let's get going. The first thing I want to show you is this. So if you go up to the FPS Lab and then you go down to Player, there is an IK Gizmo Quick Toggle script. And what this does is it allows you to show all or hide all of the gizmos. And here, this is great for when you're setting up your idles, your runs, and all that stuff. You can turn them all off. You can enable them one at a time, that kind of thing. So this is great for when you're setting up your controller or if you need to see all of your positioning and rotations for each of the gizmos. So this is super awesome. And that way it's a less cluttered view as well. But moving on, let's take a look at the actual components on the controller itself. Let's start off with input. So we're going to go through this one at a time. Input here is pretty well self-explanatory. You can follow through by reading this. I'm going to touch base on each of these as quickly as possible, as I do not want to go into too much depth. But if you followed the video where we set up a character from the beginning, you noticed that the input actions and assets were automatically assigned using the wizard. But let's start at the top here. So the cursor menu, you can lock the cursor to center. That basically, when you start the game, it hides that. And then there's the in-game menu, which you hit escape, and up pops the in-game menus UI. The new input system optional. This is for the action asset and the binding catalog. This is so that the old and new inputs work hand in hand. You don't have to pick and choose. You can just have them both working seamlessly together. And your typical mouse gamepad sensitivity settings, as well as your default controls, which are changed inside of the options menu in the game. You can change it and it will automatically change and update this asset as well as the Xbox or gamepad controller layout. Here we have the scoped steady aim sniper scope overlay. You can Scope is steady, uses the sprint input, which is basically to hold your breath. You can disable that. There's tons of things you can do. Just follow this here. You have optional ways to turn it off, use a different input, that kind of thing. Weapon switching, as you know, you're scrolling on your controller up and down on the scroll button, or you can use the letter T on your keyboard if you want to switch using a actual key on your keyboard. Advanced movement inputs. You can use a custom dash input or a custom slide input. Right now, it's if you sprint and you crouch, then you slide. If you double tap in one direction, you dash. You can actually enable these, and you can choose different inputs if you want a different key to handle that, as opposed to a built-in combination input. Okay. So that's inputs. Go through that slowly at your own pace. I want to do this as quick as possible. The movement here is basically what it is: your modern walk speed, how fast you walk, and your retro walk speed. Now, even though you have the modern one installed in the demo, still populates this. So if you switch modes, it'll automatically use the retro speed as opposed to the modern speed. And that'll be shown later on in this video. The slope limit of the limit that your character can walk on before they start to slide, as well as the all of the terrain navigation information here. It's all pretty self-explanatory. Just go through that. You can, if you're not sure, just put your mouse over it and it will tell you exactly what it does. Or you can use the user manual. Now this is important here, is the ground detection layer. By default, if you remember when we set up the project, it is the level geometry, which is the 31st layer. So just make sure that all your geometry, all your ground geometry, all your wall geometry is on the level geometry layer. Here you have the wall block, which is basically when you walk into a wall, instead of the character keep animating while you're walking on a wall, which is like an old school cartoon or a pre-2000 game, you know, where you just the animation keeps playing. This will prevent that. So just again, make sure that the wall mask is level geometry. And then you can adjust the wall check distance, that kind of thing. So when they're walking, it'll stop the animation so they don't look silly walking into a wall. The jump controller here is pretty self-explanatory. You got the modern jump and retro jump, just like I said before. You've got modern air control, which you can control a little bit or not at all. It's up to you. or a little bit or a lot in retro, which is basically, you know, which way you can move left and right, forward and back while you're falling. So you have fall control, which is basically your coyote time, that kind of thing, as well as your jump buffer. All right. So coyote time is basically like, you know, like in the old cartoons that you walk off an end of a cliff. Well, it gives you a split second to jump, even if you're off the platform before you start to fall to your death. That's why coyote time is. So it's pretty small because you, even in retro games, you kind of want it not too stupidly unrealistic, right? But again, it explains it all right here. Double jump, you can have double jump or disable double jump. And then you can set the peak window as well as the force for the second jump. Now, the audio settings, you have your jump sounds. You can have as many as you want, so you can have multiple jumps, which are randomly selected when you jump, so it adds variety. And same with the land sounds. I don't have landing right now. For some reason, it's missing. I guess I forgot to add it. Let's see if I can find it. Let's just do a default concrete land. But anyway, you have your landing sounds. You're going to add as many of those, so randomly those are played when you land. The landing velocity, airborne land sound, all that stuff. You have to have a certain velocity before the landing sound will play. That way, when you're walking down steps, it's not playing it every time you walk down a step. That just would be annoying. So there's a cooldown period, a grace period, as well as the audio source for that to play on. This is all set up for you pretty well automatically when you use the setup wizards, but you will have to go through and adjust the audio and add the audio and that kind of thing yourself. All right, let's keep moving. We've got a lot to get through. Let's look at the module manager. Is literally what it is. You can open the module manager window here, and it will show everything that is currently set up and installed. Obviously, the required ones are installed, but you can also select and change the settings by selecting them here, as well as you can check the dependencies as well. So some of these might need dependencies, such as, you know, the hard-coded ones. So that's how you check that. But it's more or less, when the character's set up, you don't need to ever use it, but it's there just in case you want to check if something's broken or you remove something and something happened. You have a way to remedy that. The weapon pickup manager. Now, this is where you have to add all of the weapons that you create using the weapon tool or the weapon creation tool, which is here. So if you go to the weapon wizard, anything that you create here, you would add to this script. So for example, here we have all of the weapons that I created for the demo, and you just drag and drop them into this here. Now by default, it should automatically do it because you just click the discover weapons on rig and it will automatically populate these, because when you create a weapon, you want to add it to the actual player as well. And I'll show you that probably in a later video, but just to quickly touch base here, you'll see that I have the pistol right here. So if I enable this, you can see that I have the weapon and all of the shell ejection points, everything you need set up, where the bullet is, where the muzzle flash is spawned, all of that. And that's all handled via the weapon creation wizard. So let's disable that. But basically what you do is when you create a weapon, it will automatically add it to the player, and then you just position it in the hand, and it will automatically create a weapon pickup as well. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty powerful. When you start messing around with it, you'll totally understand and get it. So just make sure that they're all there. And then if we go down to the core controller, this is automatically done. This is where you can choose your current mode from modern to retro, which you initialize on start. So it says right here, it says no, it's runtime only because it's not initialized. So don't worry about that. Here you can open up the setup wizard. You can open up the module manager window as well. These are automatically handled via script, so don't worry about that. The sprint controller is basically how fast you sprint, whether it's, again, modern or retro, and then the sprint multiplier. And does it require stamina when you're sprinting? Yes or no. It's totally up to you if you want it to or not. So again, you have full control. Okay, let's move on to the next one, the crouch controller. The modern crouch speed, how slow you're moving when you're crouched versus the retro, same as before. So when you switch the mode in the core controller, it will use either modern or retro like I discussed previously. here's your capsule dimensions. So when you're standing, or sorry, when you're crouched, the crouch radius and the transition speed will scale the height of the capsule that the player has right now. So you can get under obstacles and that kind of thing. Okay. So that's how you do that. And it's also like that on walk and all the other things, and dash and all that stuff as well. So you'll see that here. So here you want to make sure that the ceiling check layer is the level geometry, because that's where your level geometry is. So if you slide or crouch or crawl under something and there's a ceiling right above you, you won't be able to get out of that stance because it won't let you, because you don't want to clip through a wall or a ceiling or anything like that anyway. So just make sure that level geometry is set correctly. And then, of course, the check radius and check height. Just adjust these to get the desired result. All right, let's look at the prone controller. Again, very similar. Which I really liked. It's like a lot of places have like where you side strafe, I guess, when you're thinking. This one I just said, nah, screw it. I'm going to have it where you roll left and right, which I think is really cool. So you can adjust all that here. The speed, of course, as well as is roll enabled. If it is, great. You can use roll. You don't have to. You have the roll curve. You can adjust all of this stuff. The roll distance, all of that. As well as your height for your capsule, just like we talked about in the crouch. You adjust the height here and it'll adjust the capsule height here. As well as the obstacle layer. Just again, make sure that it's level geometry. This is like for ceilings, that kind of thing. So you can't clip through or go through. And then audio for all of that. All right, just go through this step by step. Again, like I said, a lot of this just makes sense. At a glance, it's overwhelming, but if you take the time and read, it's very, very straightforward. Character controller is just the character controller. Don't worry about that. The animation manager is literally for controlling the animations. If you decide to use animations such as the reload, punching, kicking, idle weapon animations, that kind of thing. The default controller is automatically applied. The controller itself, though, is also, if I bring this up here for a second, the controller actually has the arms and the legs split separately. So the arms are on their own layer and their legs are on their own layer. The left and right legs are on their own layer, and the arms are all on one layer, meaning that you can have a kick left, kick right, whatever you want, and it all plays together. So just check out the animation controller and you'll see how the layers work. And also when you do weapon reload animations and stuff like that, it explains how you have to add the weapon animations to a specific layer on that controller for it to be accessible. But that is for a later video. So animation manager. Okay, let's go into the modern mode. Now this is where this is basically the modern module. Since we don't have the retro module installed, because instead of modern, it would say retro mode. If you switch to, on the core controller, if you switch it to retro mode, it won't be able to use it because it's not installed. So you would have to add that. You can manually add that script if you so wish. But the modern mode is right here. It's enabled, blah, blah, blah. The full body controller and ADS system will automatically populate when you enter play mode if you have them installed. The Procedural IK module, this is where we set up all of the IK for the entire character. Okay, everything is configured. You can auto populate as well, which will then scan through the entire setup of the character and it will automatically populate these. But by default, they should automatically populate anyway. So, but you have the option to check again if you so choose. Ground detection, this is again, just set the ground layer because everything is tied into this ground layer, which is your level geometry. And ground detection settings, just make sure it's enabled, because if you don't have this enabled, by default it is. But if you don't, the character will act very strange. It won't be grounded, it'll be floaty, it just won't be good. So just make sure that this is set up correctly. And if you use the video tutorial where you swap out my model for yours, then you won't have to worry about any of this because it's already set up. The advanced movement module, again, is automatic. It automatically detects the components. When you enable the advanced mode, which you can also disable by just checking this, it sets up slide, dash, mantle, ladder, and swim. You can disable it and then your player won't be able to do any of that. So again, it's just the power of this system. You can go to the setup module and configure all of this stuff as well. But again, if you use the controller and swap out the model, it's already set up for you anyway. Slide. This is where you have a few choices. This is the speed, obviously, the slide duration. But there's a couple stance restrictions as well, which are false by default because it just doesn't make sense to me. But if you want to have a crazy, weird game, well, you have the ability to do that. Slide. You can slide when you're prone. You can slide when you're crouched. I just don't think that makes logical sense. But if you want that option, you can enable these and, well, have at it. And again, here's your capsule height for that. And then your visual root offset. During the slide, the visual root uses the crouch position as a base, but then it applies this offset. So by default, this is a great cushion. And again, here, ceiling detection. So if you slide under something and your slide stops while you're still under it, it will automatically force you into the prone position. Here we have audio settings for this too, such as the slide loop sounds. So you can, again, if you want, you can have multiple different sounds and it will randomly pick one. And as you're sliding, it will loop this. And then you have, of course, your fade, your range, your pitch, that kind of thing. All right, moving on. Quickly. Dash. Dash, again, is the same thing. You can adjust your, speeds for your modern or retro, your duration, that kind of thing, as well as your randomly picked dash sounds. Again, so you can have a standalone dash key or just a double tap, which we talked about. I think I talked about in another video. I don't know. There's so much to cover in here. I forget what I've talked about in the past. Let's look at mantle. Mantle, again, same thing, speed. Mantle field present is struggling. So you can set up different curves for smooth, snappy, custom. So you can have them pull up real quick. You can have them look like they're struggling a little bit. You can adjust the curve, the pitch, all that kinds of stuff. As well as the detection distance and the max angle, that kind of thing. You have the mantle sounds. Again, you can have random mantle sounds. They're randomly picked during that operation. And you can open up the mantle point tool, which will allow you to create, again, just follow this. It will allow you to create a mantle point, which will then use this such for climbing up ledges and stuff like that. So again, another tool built into another tool to help you do what you need to do. All right. And next up is the ladder climb. The ladder climb is exactly what it sounds. It's a modern ladder climb. Again, the speed for both. Interaction range, how far away you can. Mount landing position is true. But you can also jump and attach yourself to a ladder, so you can jump from somewhere and attach. It doesn't force you to mount at the bottom, but just leave this on by default. That way you have best of both worlds. You can jump into a ladder or not. And you can jump off of ladders. It's really cool. It's a very powerful ladder system. The ladder system actually took me a long time to feel exactly how I want it, because a lot of controllers, I find that the ladder systems are not that good, or they're not that well thought out, or they're very floaty, where this one's kind of a happy medium. You actually see the hands grab onto the railing and you see the feet walking up the parts of the ladder, that kind of thing. So, restricting your view on the ladder, that kind of thing, which is awesome. So if you open up the ladder tool as well, this will actually allow you to create a ladder. Again, just go through all this and read it, but you have, the height, the width, the depth, the dismount offset, how many rungs there are, how many steps basically are in the ladder. And it automatically creates the foot and hand IKs, and you can set off the offsets. So you can lock the hands onto the ladder. If you've played the demo, you know exactly how it works, and it tells you exactly how to do it. And you can create a ladder right here with this awesome tool as well. So it's another thing that you don't have to do manually. Swimming was another one that was a big pain in the butt, but to get it to feel right without being floaty, took a long time to get swimming the way I wanted it, but here we are, we're good. So again, when you're underwater, it'll adjust the capsule height, just like the slide, crouch, prone kind of thing, allowing you to swim through tunnels and whatnot. But here's, again, your modern and retro swim speed, as well as your modern and retro underwater speed. So this is for your surface and for your underwater, and then your vertical movement as well. And then you have your arm IK for your left and right arms for when you're swimming, as well as the stroke and swim multiplier. So again, this is all explained I think I explained it in another video, but how you set it up by making sure that your swim IK is here. If you use the wizards, it's automatically assigned, and then you just adjust it and it'll automatically use it. So you don't need to really assign this manually. It'll automatically do it when you set up your character. So that's super powerful. Surface arm offset, you can offset it so it's above or slightly below the water, that kind of thing. Shoulder rotations as well. I just, you can adjust this if you want. I leave it for 0. And you can check and create missing IK hints if they're missing, but they're not. Your leg kick speed, angle, that kind of thing, as well as your optional arm animation. So if you wanted to have swimming as an animation and not as procedural, you can assign your swim animations right here, which is super awesome. So you have that ability as well. And here you have your sound effects for your idle, surface, submerged, moving, surface, submerged, that kind of thing, as well as drowning, all of that. So just go through this and make sure all of these are assigned. Here we have the anchor for the surface, so your character doesn't stick out of the water looking ridiculous. You can adjust the swim anchor, which is all part of the player here. You can adjust that. There it is right there, the blue one with a little T. So you want it to go up just to above that dot, so you're just above the water. Then your swim breathe point, again, is just how far your head, which is this one here, how far your head has to be out of water before you catch your breath. I put it at the top of the head just so it's a little bit easier for him not to drown. You can enable realistic buoyancy, which is super cool. When you jump in, your body is slowly forced back to the surface unless you dive. So your body has buoyancy, which is super cool. You can disable that if you just want him to drop like a stone. That's totally up to you. Here's your sinking entry, how far you dive or dip underwater. So basically, if you jump off of a box or a diving board into the water, you want to obviously go under the water and then come back up to the surface. This allows you to set all of that up. By default, it feels just about right, in my opinion. Then there's your surface alignment, is the smoothness and speed. Your exit threshold, how high you jump out. So the jump force multiplier is 22. You can adjust this to get the exact result you want, but by default, this is pretty well spot on. And then the physics setting, the water layer mask is water. So basically, if you jump into this is where you'll be able to swim, okay, into a water volume. And the really cool thing about the water volume is we have a tool for it. So you can actually make your own swimming pool. With ease, it will create a gizmo in here. You can resize it. It'll automatically set it up, and you can literally dive right in and swim instantaneously after creating this void. Oh, sorry, void. I mean volume. So it's really powerful, very easy. Again, a tool with a tool inside of a tool to help you get what you want. All right, let's move on to the next one, which is the wall run. Now, this one, I never really liked playing games with wall run, but I know a lot of people do. So I added wall run to the core components here. So you just set up the wall mask that you want to wall run on. So, for example, if you create a level that's with the level geometry layer, just create an invisible box over the surface you want to run on and just hide the mesh and just call and label that one as wall run. Put that on the wall run layer, and then when the player senses that, they can run along that. So it's completely up to you how you set it up. Then there's speed, run gravity, duration, your stick force, all that kinds of stuff. Again, like I said, just mouse over, it'll explain all of that, or just click the user manual, but it's pretty well self-explanatory what all of this does. Jump, arch, peak, so you can jump off of the wall. So if you look in a direction, you can jump, and then double jump if you want off of the wall. So that's kind of cool as well. So your wall run and wall jump built into one. Physics interaction module is exactly what it is. You can enable, disable this. If you have a box that has the buoyancy script onto it, or has buoyancy enabled on it, I should say, then you will be able to interact by swimming into them, pushing them out of the way. So you can enable or disable that. Unarmed combat module, this is exactly what it is. This is just setting it up. So if you open up the unarmed setup module, you can see here that you can build it, but it's already set up. But if you go over here, there's an unarmed combat here, which allows you to set all of the punches and kicks up as well. Okay, so unarmed module is more or less done. It's an automatic thing. It's automatically wired into the unarmed settings here in the unarmed combat. Okay. Walk mode, again, is default. You can toggle. Is walking toggled, or is it by default? So you can choose, like, for example, run or walk default. So instead of running, you just walk as your default movement mode, and then hold down shift to sprint, that kind of thing. All right. So you can choose if you want to have what state, walk or run, as your default movement. And is it toggle or hold? That's completely up to you. And then the walk speed settings. Okay. And then the core movement module, this is all automatic at runtime. This will be added under advanced settings. There's not really anything you need to do here. The required dependencies, optional dependencies, and stuff like that. That's just added later on for other modules that I'll be creating that I talked about in the previous video. But yeah, so this is good to go. Don't really need to do anything there. The weapon system module here is well, it's not pretty self-explanatory, but it's quite in-depth. And it basically explains everything about how your weapons are set up. So if you start as unarmed by clicking this button, so whatever weapons you have assigned, you will start with just your bare fists until you select or unholster a weapon of your choice. You will automatically start with just your fisticuffs. And here you can choose weapon switch time, your maximum weapon capacity. So I have 7, but you can set up as many as you need. You can drop weapons. You can also enable wheel switching, so scrolling up and down to switch between weapons. Draw and holster sounds and their volumes. And again, a tool within a tool, you can open up the wizard here and create your weapons right here. And in another video, I'm going to show you how to do that. It's quite straightforward, but for the purpose of this one, let's just keep on moving. So once you've got that all set up, let's go on to the next one here. Interaction, Jesus, I've still got a long way to go. Interaction system module, this is all pretty well set up by default, but if you wanted to change the interaction layer where you can only interact with certain things, this is where you would do it. Interaction key is E for just picking it up. You can change and set whatever you want there. This is also linked directly to the input, so if you change it here, it'll change it there. So you don't need to worry about that. I'd leave it by default and then just configure the game how you want to play in the game's options. So the prompts that are shown when you look at or mouse over something, your grabbable things like grab, pick up, or swap weapons. So if you have all 7 slots full and you mouse over another weapon you don't have, your current weapon will be like, hey, do you want to swap with this one? So you can, and you'll drop the one you're holding and pick up the one that was on the ground. So if you have another spot open, it will just say, hey, do you want to pick up this weapon? And if you have a crate or something you can grab, it'll just say, hey, press E to grab, press E to pick up, press E to swap weapon, that kind of thing. All right. So that's where you change that. So let's go on to weapon IK hints. Now this is where that other script that I showed you came into handy, where you can choose what you want to see using that other script, which again is under Tools, FPS Lab, and then if you go to Player, IK Gizmo Quick Toggle. This is basically what this does. I just felt it was easier just to have a single place you could come and deal with it instead of trying to hunt it down in all of the components, right? But basically, that's what that is. And then you can check and create if there's any missing IK hints, but again, by default, they're all there if you just swap out your model for my model for yours. These are all automatically configured because if you're swapping it out again, they will be there. Now, here, alignment testing at runtime, you can force the position so you can see how they line up. But again, we'll be going into that into another video with the aim assistant helper, script/wizard. All of this is set up. Just ignore all that. And here we have the movement sway settings where you can have the character sway based on their walking, running, sprinting, prone. ADS, which is aim down sights, sway reduction, that kind of thing. If you just go through all of this, you can adjust it to get the exact feel that you need for your game. There's a lot of options here. But again, like I said, if you're not sure, just mouse over and it will tell you exactly what it is. Or you could just go to the user guide here, okay? So just keep that in mind, but there's a lot going on here. And then, of course, you have your reload, your melee. Each weapon also has a melee, so you can smash them with the butt of your rifle, that kind of thing. So you can set all that stuff up. Again, all of these IKs are set up if you use the demo character. And here's detonator press noise, which is your fire. And there's a cool like little delay too when you use the explosives as well. But okay, let's move on because we got a long way to go, and there's so little time. Okay, physics collision. This is again colliding into physics objects such as grabbable boxes that are actually physics-based boxes, or the floating buoyant crates that are floating in the water. You can have this and you can interact and apply force to them. So you can change this so you don't apply as much force when you're in the water to those objects, but yeah, just tweak this to get the desired results. All right. And the physics push again is like for when you're on ground, for example. You can pick up an object that's grabbable, but if it's not grabbable, you can just do a push where you kind of just like push it over the edge or just shove it out of the way, that kind of thing. So it applies force and push range to that. So it's kind of cool. It's a little thing. You can use it if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to, but it's just kind of a neat little addition. Physics object interaction. This is basically for picking up and throwing. So if you pick up a grabbable and then you press and hold, it will build up the power and strength to throw it. So you have the force, the distance, that kind of thing. So the grab container is already here, but if it's missing, you can create one, but just go through this and read it and it'll explain exactly how that is. Now here's your throw settings, which I was talking about briefly, was the force, the arc of the angle, like the upward arc, cooldown time, the teleport distance. So when you throw it, how far away from the player it teleports, just so it doesn't collide with the player, but still look natural, that kind of thing. The throw audio clip, as well as the throw audio clips volume. And then here we have brake logic. So basically the brake logic is if you turn and rotate while holding a box and you collide into a wall, you'll drop it because it's hit the wall. So it has physics spring release as well. So if you collide with a wall when carrying something, you can drop it. You can adjust all of these settings here if you so choose. Okay. And then the UI module is basically everything that we set up using the UI wizard, which is right here. Hold on a minute. And the UI here, where are you? Where are you, UI? Dang it, right here. All right, so when we set this up for the, I've moved it since my last version. But here, for example, your UI, when you use this UI to configure it, it'll automatically set this up anyway. But that's for your like in-game HUD, your in-game menu, your options, that kind of thing. And then we of course have the main menu UI, which is here, which is under UI, main menu, which you use to create the UI on the main menu scene, not here, but on the main menu scene. And I show that in another video. But anyway, this is all automatically updated. You can open up the UI setup wizard here to build the in-game UI that I was talking about. Okay. And the cool thing is too, is when you build the UI, if you want to go to FPS Lab and then go to UI and apply UI button sounds, you can actually choose the canvas and choose the hover and press button clips and then assign it. It will automatically sign systematically on all the buttons those audio sounds to those particular events. So it automatically wires in the audio as well, which is super cool. All right, let's go on to the next one, the health and stamina module. This again is automatically added. When you set it up and install it, it finds all of the other components required for this, which are down here, which we'll be covering shortly. So you don't need to worry about that. And then the health system. This one here allows you to have the max health, the current health. So you can start a level if you want with like 10 health points, where you're hurting and you're injured or whatever. Low health threshold is when it will show the scene or the low health full screen overlay that you set up earlier. You can enable health regeneration right here as well if you want to have like Call of Duty type health regeneration. After you take cover, you start to get better. You can also enable limb damage, which is super cool. So if you get shot in the hand, you drop the weapon, that kind of thing. But more on that later. Let's move on. The stamina system here is the max stamina, current stamina, stamina drain, regeneration, and regen delay. So when you stop to take a breath, it will regenerate the stamina. You can use stamina for running. Swimming is your breath. Basically, it's stamina, but converted to breathing. So yeah, you just set your stamina here, how much stamina you have, how much you currently have, that kind of thing. And you can, you can actually adjust this via code for other scripts too. Like if your other game's logic, you can tie it in directly to this as well. So, and the user manual will explain that. Some of the code snippets that you would use, some of the code logic. All right, moving on to the armor system. Again, the armor system is how much armor you have. Now, the cool thing is you can have per part body armor. So you could have arms, arms, head, legs, torso. And this is great if you want to do like a mech type game where damage happens to the arms, that kind of thing. You can do that as well. And I'm going to be covering that in another video tutorial. I might even cover it after this. It's so simple, but let's move on. So you can adjust all those there, the absorption rate, that kind of thing. If you're not sure, again, how much incoming damage absorbs before health. So because you want the armor to be damaged before your health gets damaged, right? But if it's a big explosion, you might get a little bit of you'll get a lot of armor damage, but you might want to have a little bit of health damage as well. And then the damage indicator basically shows floating damage numbers of how much damage you actually took on your UI. So it'll show you that you lost like minus 35 on the explosion. It'll just kind of appear above your health icon or your health counter. So you can adjust those settings here and the colors for those here, which is basically for UI. And then your breath system, the maximum amount of breath, basically it's stamina, but it's worded differently here. So it's allows you to, to separate it, I guess you could say. The cool thing here too is you can apply drowning to armor. I have this off by default, but when you're drowning in the water, you can have it where it damages your armor before it starts damaging your health. So you can have that choice as well. It's kind of like a Duke Nukem type game or something like that, where if you're drowning, your armor gets depleted before your health starts to get depleted. And of course, there's the drowning sound and the drowning death for your character right here. Moving on, the stamina audio. Again, stamina audio is low stamina, like you're out of breath. Exhausted clip, out of breath clip. So you can adjust this and you'll be able to hear the character breathe heavy and stuff like that. For the purpose of the demo, I didn't use it. I just wanted it to be kind of like quiet, but you can choose to use this if you so choose. And of course, you have the volume and control settings for the thresholds and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's so powerful. You have control over literally everything you could think of. All right, the HUD manager is exactly what it is. It's just the HUD that is the HUD canvas here. You can enable or disable it via code. But yeah, that's basically all that does. And then ammo UI is, if I can show you here, this is the ammo right here. And you can see the ammo format, which is the amount that your gun has in its clip and the amount that you have in stock overall. Okay. And you can choose if you want to have reserve or max ammo, which is basically, this is the reserve, this is your maximum ammo kind of thing. Okay, so you can choose that too, but it's all also automatic. All right, the next thing in is the crosshair UI, which is reactive. What I mean by reactive is you can use a red dot instead of a cross. So if you just want a dot on your screen, you can use that. If you want to have like the crosshair, which is there, you can do that. Okay. But here's where you can change the colors. Like when you mouse over things you can grab or ammo or things like that, you can actually have the cursor color change to match whatever you're looking at. So you can change and set that all up here, as well as the tags if they're enemy or friendly. And then here, if you want, you can also use sprite-based, which will change the sprites. So the crosshair will literally show maybe like a fist if you want to grab or something like that. So you can have it where it changes the actual crosshair to whatever sprite you set up here as well. And then, of course, the spread and max spread for the crosshair. So when you're shooting, how far the crosshair separates, that kind of thing, or zooms out or zooms in. Okay. So it's, again, like I said, the crosshair is reactive. The interaction UI is exactly what it states. It's your prompt text. So basically, when you look at an ammo or an ammo crate or a pickup, this is where the prompt for that will be displayed, such as grab weapon, press E to grab weapon, press F to open door, or what have you. This is where that happens, and this is the prompt format. So press whatever the input key is to whatever the command is to open door, pick up ammo, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So you can change this, but I recommend just leaving it as it is because it makes the most sense, but you have the power to do that if you so choose. Let's move on to the audio sources. Okay, let's move on to wall proximity. The wall proximity is, again, make sure the wall layer mask is the level geometry, but it's when you're close to the wall, your weapon will fold into your body. So it's not sticking through the wall. So it has wall detection. So you're not clipping the weapon through the wall per se, even though the camera has a secondary player camera, so you won't actually get clipping because of the secondary camera, but this adds more realism because you're not pointing a weapon through a wall or against a wall, so it just kind of goes up to your body. And that's basically where you would set the proximity as well as the speed and detection distance for that. Check out the demo, play it, and you'll know exactly what I mean if you walk towards a wall holding a shotgun. The footstep audio module, this is what I was telling you about, was the basic footstep system. This basically is just saying, hey, it's installed. And then the footstep system, which is directly below it, is where you add the sound effects for the walking, running, sprinting, crouching, that kind of thing, as well as the intervals. The audio source to use and the volume. Like I said before, and again, another shameless plug is if you get the Audio Lab, which is another asset of mine, it has a very robust and powerful footstep system, but it also has mesh audio emitters with markers. It has audio occlusion and propagation. It has environmental zones and so much more to make your game come to life. And there's a huge update coming out, which is unbelievably powerful and makes the game, makes the process so much easier to use. But neither here nor there, just food for thought. But if you want to use a very basic footstep system, this comes with one. It doesn't detect materials and stuff like that. The Audio Lab does. That's why I did it. It's kind of a shameless plug. But hey, it is what it is. But you have the power to just use your basics here. So, I mean, if you're doing like a retro game, it doesn't really matter, right? But there's your footstep system. And if you move on to the health event router, this is basically shows how much health each of your limbs have or body parts or what have you have, if that's the option you have enabled on your player. And then the fall damage is basically how safe a fall. So if you fall 3 meters, you're good. If you fall 3 meters, you're good. If you damage a meter, 1 meter further than that, it's 5 damage per meter. Max damage is 60. But instant death if you fall 15 meters or higher. You just land on the ground, you're dead. Game over. Now the health system, this will automatically populate. Don't worry about that. But ignore when submerged. So if you jump from very, very high, like off a waterfall into the water, it will not kill you because you're landing in water. You can apply it to armor as well. Fall damage can just damage your armor before it damages your health. It's totally up to you how you want to do that. Then under the fall damage stages, you have by default, basically it's this here. but it's explained here, like no damage up to 3 meters. Above that, you apply the damage of 5, and you can adjust these, remove them, or add more states if you want to really tweak it. It's completely up to you. But yeah, so there's that, and then let's move on to the next one. Fall damage is done. The respawn manager is for when you die and you respawn, where it takes you to the checkpoint of your previous death, or your previous checkpoint after your death. It has the death screen UI, which is automatically found, so don't worry about that, as well as your save system. So it loads your previous weapon and ammo account, your previous weapon that you used, and your ammo account and all that stuff. So you're basically not starting with what you died with. You're starting with what you saved with. So it's more accurate that way. And then the save system, again, is touching on the respawn manager, but the save system is how many slots you have. This is where I was telling you you can adjust. You have up to 10, which I find is more than enough save slots. Let me know if you need a lot more than that, but I think generally speaking, 10 is enough. You get into 20, 30, 40 slots is a little bit ridiculous. You can choose the thumbnail width, height. You can choose what you want the thumbnail to exclude. So if you want it to capture everything, that's great. But if you don't want to capture the UI, you can just choose UI. And it won't capture UI, it'll just capture the scene or the level behind it. So you have full control of what your save system thumbnail captures, which is awesome. And it also saves to the savegame.json, right? Thumbnail on checkpoint, so it saves a thumbnail at checkpoint, so whatever you're looking at. But that's where you configure the save system for the character. And then moving on to the visual effects module. The visual effects module is for your screen damage and particle systems. This is automatically configured once the module is set up through through the module wizard setup wizard. Or in this case, because you're using the demo controller, it's already set up. Again, screen effects is the same thing. It's, for your armor, your damage, and your flash overlay. So you're like for your flashbang, your low health, that kind of thing. You add your prefabs here that are created using the wizard, or use the ones that are included within this, and then you can actually modify these prefabs directly as opposed to trying to build them yourself. It's completely up to you. You can also choose the armor damage sound. Jesus, tongue twisted. But yeah, you can choose configure all of this here, the overlay time, fade time, that kind of thing. Just go through this, and it's pretty straightforward. All right, damage effects is very similar, but this is for your blood effects for particles, impact particles. So what you would want to do is you would put in a particle here, like that realistic blood visual effects, like a impact blood spray. Drop it here, so when you get shot, that blood will appear on your screen. You'll see blood gushing. All right, but you have that ability to do that here, or you could import a third-party asset to control it if you so choose. But this is spawned at the point of impact, so if you get shot in the head, you see it flowing pretty good. Moving on to the particle system manager. You can tell I'm getting tired. The particle system prefab manager, the particle system manager, shows how many maximum active particles are allowed, as well as the particle system. So this is if you get hit, shot, muzzle flashes, that kind of thing. This here, 100 is pretty good, and it's optimized, and it has pooling, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But yeah, you're good to go there. Lean controller, this is for leaning left and right around corners. Yeah, just to adjust how much you want to lean, how fast it takes to smooth, like how smooth or how fast it is to smooth it. So 0.3 is a good feeling. If you go much lower than that, it's kind of poppy, snappy. But that's what you might want maybe in a retro game. It's like a snappy lean, or no lean. Just disable. It's up to you. Next one, damage receiver. Now this is where it gets kind of interesting, because there's a wizard that allows you to change how your damage is dealt or received, how you receive damage. But here it's like your health component and your armor component, so it knows the damage and the damage multiplier and the body part that is applied to. But if you change from a capsule damage to limb damage, not to limb damage, but to to body part health, and then there's limb damage, this automatically changes to accommodate that. And I will show you that in a future video. Actually, I might even just load it up here real quick after I've finished these last two here. So the scope overlay is for your sniper rifle. This is created in the UI when you create the UI using the UI wizard in the module manager or the module hub. And this is just for your scope overlay, so we're good there. And then if you take a look at the absolute last one, is the aiming down sights. This is where you can adjust the position, the field of view, that kind of thing. And you can adjust some of these via code as well. Again, look at the user manual. There's code snippets and stuff there if you want to alter it via a third-party script or what have you. But all of the options for steadiness, your breathing, your heartbeat while it's being held, that kind of thing. So it's pretty darn cool. So let's quickly go back to the damage receiver here. But if you go to Tools, the FPS Lab, and you go to Health Mode Switcher here under Gameplay, this allows you to take a controller. So for example, let me show you this real quick. There's a controller. You can see that it's a capsule, which is needed to move around. But let me just drag and drop this guy in here. And here's where you have simple health mode, which is what it is right now, which is just the capsule. Anywhere you get shot in the capsule delivers the same amount of damage, the same amount of health. Then there's body hit mode, which is for head, torso, arms, and legs. So if you get shot in the head, you're dead. If you get shot in the torso, arms, legs, whatever, it's less damage, less impact. And then there's limb mode, which allows you to have damage to your limbs. Like if you get shot in the hand, you can actually trigger it where you drop the weapon. So if you want to add some realism to it, you have that option. So for example, this is really safe to use. Excuse me, and completely undoable. So like for example, if I want to go to body hit mode, you'll see right away that the capsule's still there, but bullets now will only affect these capsules. You go in, adjust them to get the right size and, of course, position on the body. But once that's done, if you get shot in the hand, it'll register as an arm hit or torso or legs. And then, of course, there's the limb damage mode, which I'm not going to switch to, but it basically shows you down here what the state is. So if I want to go back to simple, I just click simple. Watch what happens. Removes all the boxes, we're back to normal. So it's a very powerful tool that allows you to mess around and see which one you want to do. So don't be afraid to try the different modes. And here it'll tell you limb damage, So if I want body limbs mode, it'll add back those capsules that, again, I would have to position and resize and stuff like that. But it tells you it's like hitboxes, 14 body parts. So now if I get shot in different parts of my body, then it registers as that. And also, like if you take a look at the UI, here you notice we have health, armor. So if I go back to simple mode will use just overall health, overall armor, and stamina. So if I enter play, watch what happens. You can see the 100 health, 100 ammo or armor, and 100 stamina. So if I exit, excuse me, if I exit and then go to, oh, excuse me. If I go to body limbs mode, and then I enter play. This is all automatic, by the way. You don't even have to change the UI. That's how awesome this is. You'll now see that there is stamina, but you have head, torso, arms, and leg health, as well as armor for each of those. So when you pick up an armor or a health pack, you can have it assigned to, say, the head. So you might have health that's only for head, health that's only for a torso, or same with armor, and you can pick it up and assign it to the one that you want to assign. So again, it's very, very powerful, very, very simple to use. But that's basically all there is in this video. I just wanted to quickly touch on each of these components, on what each of the components do. But like I said, if you're not 100% sure, you can open up the user guide or check out the previous videos of this video or what have you. And yeah, but that's it. Anyway, more in the next video. Catch you later. See ya.